I'm trying to get back in the groove, working on the airplane again. Got it down in the hangar, and it's about ready to put the wings and the engine on and start finishing it up that way. I kind of got out of sync on it a little bit between having my back cramp out on me, and I had to get the hangar cleaned up. Then I had to do some maintenance on the pickup. Seems like something else always comes up. Well, this backseat heater, I was just going to go ahead and put the airplane together and to try to get it going for this season in 2018 without it. It's not something that's absolutely necessary. It's just a comfort item for the guy in the back seat. But we didn't get the plane together in time for this season, so now I've got more time. I want to get this fixed up before I put the boot cowl on and stuff. That way I don't have to take it on and off of there to work on it again later. But I need to do something with this control box. And this is the old control box here. This side fits through the firewall, and then a piece of 2-inch scat tube goes from here, and then there's an adapter down on the lower portion of the muffler that you get air, hot air runs up through there and through here, and then this would come out here and go out into the cabin. And this is a butterfly valve for it here that opens and closes it. So I could put this back in, but I'm not really very happy with this thing. It's made out of steel, and it was really rusty and nasty. I don't know why, because it's inside the airplane, but I think the paint on it was not heat proof or anything, and it just got hot. So anyway, it's heavy. It's made out of steel. It was really rusty. Even though I sandblasted and got it cleaned up, I can't get these corners back in here and the inside cleaned up. I've tried. I've spent an hour on it or more trying to blast those and then reblast them and reblast them and trying to get the rust out of all of that, and I can't get it all cleaned up. And then this valve in here doesn't close off. They had some kind of fabric sandwiched in there to seal that off, but that just burned up. It just fell apart and burned up, got hot and burned up. So now there's great big gaps all the way around that. It doesn't come anywhere close to sealing it up. So I've always got air flowing through that, and there's always hot air coming through there, which is not bad on a cold day in the fall and the winter, or cold rainy days. It's not too bad, but on a warm day, it's hot enough in that airplane as it is without that leaking. So this is pretty rough. Well, I think I'm going to do something with this, and I'm going to try to make a new box for this and change this design a little bit. We'll still have a plate like this on the front with a 2-inch tube coming out, and I've got some, I think this is 18 gauge stainless steel 2-inch tubing that I've cut, and I got it squared up, and that'll go on a plate under there. And then the outlet, I'm going to change that. I'm going to have the outlet be a 1-inch outlet, and I think I'll just have it come out the bottom. And I've got some 18 gauge 1-inch stainless steel tubing that I'll just put out the bottom here like this. And then I'll make a stainless steel box similar to this one, but I'm going to make it out of, I think this is 20 gauge stainless steel, and so I'm going to make it out of that. So I've been practicing my stainless steel welding. Now what I intend to do is just make a box. I've got a plan laid out. This is 2.5 inches each side, so it'll be 10-inch strip, 3 1/4 inches wide, and I'll just fold it all up, 3 corners folded up, and then I'll make a weld here on the fourth corner to weld it together into a box like this. Weld an end on it on each end. So anyway, that's what the project is here. So I've laid out my welding table, got my TIG welder out, and I've been practicing on this, and I've got a whole bunch of practice welds here, and they all look like a dog's breakfast basically. This is kind of what I started out at. So stainless steel is not the easiest thing to get right in the first place. I guess it is for everybody that knows what they're doing, but for somebody like me it's not that easy. But trying to do 20 gauge stainless here is a real challenge. But I've been getting better. I've gone through, I think this is my first piece here, and I just give up on it and threw it up out of the way, and then I got another piece I run a whole bunch of beads on, and they didn't come out so bad. Got a lot of heat distortion on that, but so then I got a couple pieces out here and I tried to weld it together, and and that didn't go too well. It didn't go too bad in places, but I do pretty good and then I do crappy, and so the only consistency I have is being inconsistent. But I kept practicing and I was getting better. Well, I finally did one joint here and practiced it, and then I thought, well, maybe I'll just try, see what happens. Well, I laid out two pieces on edge here and I welded them together on this corner joint, and it is pretty darn nice. Down here on this end there was a real big gap here, and so I need to work on filling the gap there, but that's why that's boogered up on that end. But the rest of it here turned out pretty darn nice. I've got good penetration on there. It's a good strong weld, so that makes me feel better. Well, I'm still got a lot of practice to do, but still going to practice quite a bit. I got a few coupons cut here. I'll keep practicing on those. The other thing I have to do is I have to be able to weld these tubes on there, and I've been studying welding videos on YouTube, and Jody Collier's Welding Tips and Tricks is really good, and he's showing using these aluminum blocks for chill blocks. And that's what I was doing. I was taking these smaller blocks here, these 1-inch thick blocks, and clamping them down on either side of where my weld was, and that keeps the gas trapped and keeps it tight. I wasn't trying to do it perfect because I was practicing, more concerned with trying to get my beads consistent and stuff. But that was working pretty good. But this is what I did here. I put this on here, clamped it down with those two 1-inch pieces clamped over it, close on them both sides, and then run my bead on there, and turned out really good. So I was thinking about all kinds of ways to weld this tubing on there. I've got a dual flow argon gas regulator, so I can run a purge gas, and I was thinking about building a fixture to run purge gas. And then I got thinking, well, maybe I'd try this. Took this piece of 1-inch aluminum rod here, and I turned it down so that this tube would fit over it. I use that as a chill block on the inside of that tube. And then the same thing, I've got a piece on the lathe right now. This is a stub I had when I left over when I made one of the dies for the bead roller. I dug it out, and it was almost 2 inches on the inside edge, inside, and then the leftover piece that was bolted onto the faceplate on the little lathe was here, and I don't remember what size that was. It must have been 3 inches or maybe bigger. It's a piece of slug that we got someplace out of a scrap pile. So I'm in the process now of turning that down to 2 inches so it'll fit inside that 2-inch diameter stainless steel tubing, and I can clamp it down to chill blocks underneath and hopefully make a good weld on that. We'll see how it turns out. I've cut several of these rings, both the 2-inch and the 1-inch tubing rings, to weld on there. And when I get ready to do that, I'll cut a hole in a piece of stock here, and like the 1-inch tube is going to be welded in this 20 gauge stuff, and the 2-inch will be in some 18 gauge stuff. So I'll cut some holes in it and go ahead and practice doing it just like the finished product will be. Holes for the 2-inch, I got to looking, and I've got hole saw in a Makita kit that I've got that'll fit, that makes it will make just about the right sized hole for the 2-inch. But I didn't have anything that would fit the 1-inch. I've been using these rotor broaches a lot for stuff, especially the sheet metal and the Kydex on here to make holes, and I really like them. They really make a nice clean hole. But this little kit that I got, Blair rotor broach sheet metal hole cutter kit, only goes up to 3/4 of an inch. Oh, I searched last night on the internet and I found a set that has got a larger set of hole saws in it that goes up to like 1.5 inches or bigger. I ordered that, so I'll have to wait to do the 1-inch stuff until that rotor broach kit gets here. It'll probably be a week or so before that gets here, I suppose. But anyway, I can do the 2-inch, but I'm going to go ahead and practice some more just beads, and if I can get it down on this 20 gauge, then I can do just about anything, I think.